So good morning. So I suspect you are to start on a new topic. Just confirm. I said you are to start on which item? Someone to confirm to me where we are to start from. Was it the weighted average cost of capital? Yeah, so let us now start on the cost of capital. Let us now go through what we mean by the cost of capital. So it is similar to valuation. There is a very small difference when we compare with what was there in terms of the valuation. So I want us to write something brief, what we mean by the cost of capital. So we can summarize that this is the required rate of return. It is the required rate of return by investors who have provided, it is the required rate of return by investors who have provided funds to the company. It is the required rate of return by the investors who have provided funds to the company. They include Roma letter 1, cost of equity. So Roma letter 1 is cost of equity. Roma letter 2 will be cost of the preference shares. Roma letter 2 will be cost of the preference shares. Then Roma letter 3 will be cost of debenture or bond. Cost of the debenture or the bond. Cost of the debenture or the bond. So we start with cost of equity. We start off with the cost of equity. So under the cost of equity is that equity refers to the shareholders' funds. Equity refers to the shareholders' funds. It refers to the shareholders' funds, and it is classified into two categories as follows. It refers to the shareholders' funds, and it is classified into two categories as follows. So we have started with the equity, and we have said that equity refers to the shareholders' funds, and it is classified into two categories as follows. So A will be ordinary share capital. So A will be the ordinary share capital. So under that, you write that the cost of the ordinary share, is classified into two, depending on how dividends are paid as follows. The cost of the ordinary share is classified into two, depending on how the dividends are paid as follows. Depending on how dividends are paid as follows. So Roman letter 1, Roman letter 1 will be 0 dividend growth rate ordinary share. So Roman letter 1 is 0 dividend. 0 dividend growth rate ordinary shares. Growth rate ordinary shares. 0 dividend growth rate ordinary shares. So under the 0 dividend growth rate ordinary shares, KE, I'm simply giving you the formula. I'm simply giving the formula on how to compute the cost of capital. So KE will be referring to the cost of the ordinary share. It will be equal to D divided by DO minus the flotation cost. Then we express it as a percentage. So KE is the cost of the ordinary share D is the dividend per preference share. So PO is the current market price per share. PO is the current market price per share. Then F will be the flotation cost. F is meant to be the flotation cost. So that's now the Roman letter 1, 0 dividend growth rate ordinary shares. Now we go to the Roman letter 2. Roman letter 2 is constant dividend, constant dividend growth rate ordinary shares, constant dividend growth rate ordinary shares, constant dividend growth rate ordinary shares. So for that, KE will be given by D of 1 plus G divided by PO. Then you minus the flotation cost. Then you add G like that, which will be the same as D1 divided by PO minus F. Then we add G like that. So you already know what is DO. DO refers to the last dividend per share that was paid. D1 is the next dividend per share to be paid. G is the constant growth rate. G refers to the constant growth rate. G refers to the constant growth rate. So that is now the 0 dividend and the constant dividend growth rate ordinary shares. So that was now for the cost of ordinary shares. So now we go to B. B is the retained earnings. B should be now the retained earnings. We go to B as the retained earnings. So we go to B as the retained earnings. So when it comes to the retained earnings, we summarize that these are internal source of finance. These are internal source of finance, which will not incur the flotation cost. These are internal source of finance, which will not incur the flotation costs, which will not incur the flotation cost. Therefore, the cost of the retained earnings, the cost of the retained earnings is the same as the cost of the ordinary shares. Therefore, the cost of the retained earnings is the same as the cost of the ordinary shares. Is the same as the cost of the ordinary shares, except that there will be no flotation costs. Except that there will be no flotation costs. Except that there will be no flotation costs. So they are expressed as follows. They are expressed as follows. They are expressed as follows. So we start with the Roman letter 1. So Roman letter 1, we just repeat what we have here. So Roman letter 1 will be in the case of Roman letter 1, you say, in case of 0 dividend growth rate ordinary shares. So cost for the retained earnings will be KR, then we only exclude the flotation costs. That's now the Roman letter 1. In the case of the 0 dividend growth rate ordinary shares, how do you get the cost for the retained earning? Remember, we are saying that the cost of the retained earnings is the same as the cost for the ordinary share, only that there will be no flotation cost. So that's now the Roman letter 1. We go to the Roman letter 2. We go to the Roman letter 2. Roman letter 2 will be in case of constant dividend growth rate ordinary shares. In the case of the constant. So even this one, you change it to KR and you only exclude the flotation cost. The cost for the retained earnings is the same as the cost of the ordinary share, except there will be no flotation cost. Except there will be no flotation costs. So that is now all about the cost of equity. That is now all about the cost of equity. So equity is classified into two: retained earnings and the ordinary shares. So let us now go to the cost of, let us now go to the cost of the preference shares. We now go to the cost of the preference shares. We now go to the cost of the preference shares. We now go to the cost of the preference shares. We're now to the cost of the preference shares. When it comes to the cost of the preference shares, so number two is now the cost of the preference shares. Number two should now be the cost of the preference shares. So cost of the preference share is KB. It's supposed to be given by D divided by P or minus F. You express it as a percentage. So that's now the cost for the preference share. I'm simply giving the formulas on how to compute each one of them. So after the cost of the preference share, we also got number three, which was cost of debenture or bond. We now got the cost of the debenture or the bond. We now got the cost of the debenture or the bond. Cost of the debenture or the bond. So under that, we summarize that it is classified into two categories as follows. It is classified into two categories as follows. It is classified into two categories as follows. So we start with the Roman letter one. Roman letter one will be irredeemable debenture. Roman letter one is irredeemable debenture. Irredeemable debenture. So under irredeemable debenture, you write that these are debentures which remain outstanding. These are debentures which remains outstanding as long as the company is a going concern. These are debentures which remains outstanding as long as the company is a going concern. As long as the company is a going concern. It is expressed as follows. It is expressed as follows. So to get KD, so KD should be equal to interest 1 minus the corporate tax. Then we divide by, so I'll be able to explain what each one of them stands for. So KD will be equal to interest. Then in the brackets of 1 minus the tax rate, we divide by, so this one is interest. KD is the cost of the debenture. This one is interest, then 1 minus the corporate tax. Then we divide, so this is the current value for the debenture. This one is the current value for the debenture. This other one is the flotation cost. Then you express it as a percentage. So it is interest in the brackets of 1 minus the corporate tax. We divide by current value for the debenture. We subtract the flotation cost. Then we express it as a percentage. So that is now irredeemable debenture. Roman letter 2, we go to redeemable debenture. Roman letter 2, we go to redeemable debenture. So under redeemable debenture, you summarize that these are debentures with a defined maturity period. These are debentures with a defined maturity period. These are debentures with a defined maturity period. They are debentures with a defined maturity period. Their cost is equivalent to internal rate of return. Their cost is equivalent to internal rate of return of the security. Their cost is equivalent to internal rate of return of the security. Internal rate of return of the security. And it is also known as the yield to maturity. And it is also known as the yield to maturity. It is also known as the yield to maturity. And it will be expressed as follows. It is also known as the yield to maturity, and it will be expressed as follows. It will be expressed as follows. So KD will be the same as the yield to maturity. KD will be the same as the yield to maturity, which will be equal to interest, then 1 minus the corporate tax. Then we add maturity value minus the current value, 1 over n. Then also maturity value plus the current value. Then this one we multiply by a half. Then we express it as a percentage. So KD will be the same as the yield to maturity, which will be equal to interest, then 1 minus the tax rate. This one is maturity value. This one is the maturity value. Then this one is the current value. So I'm saying this is the maturity value. This is the current value. This is the current value. Then N is the maturity period. N will be the maturity period. So N is the maturity period. This is the maturity value. This is the current value. This one is the interest. Then T is the corporate tax. So now from there, I want us now to get some questions in your past papers on how we can apply them when it comes to calculating the cost of capital. So the first question I want us to use, I would like you to go to December 2012, question number 2, part E. December 2012, question number 2, part E. So we go to December 2012, question number 2, part E. December 2012, question number 2, part E. December 2012, question number 2, part E. So that question 2, part E, the one for Naziri Investment Limited. Naziri Investment Limited. Mine's on page 90. So are you able to access the question for December 2012? Question number 2E. Question 2E. Are we all there? Are we all there? So the question reads that Naziri Investment Limited currently sells bonds at shillings 1,200 with an 11% coupon rate and shillings 1,000 bar value. The bond agreement provides for payment of interest annually basis with 18 years maturity period. With 18 years maturity period. So required, they wanted you to compute the bond yield to maturity. They wanted you to calculate the bond yield to maturity. So bond yield to maturity, we want to calculate the bond yield to maturity. You want to calculate the bond yields to maturity. So yield to maturity for KD. So KD is the same as the yield to maturity. It is supposed to be given by interest. It is interest 1 minus the corporate tax. Then maturity value minus the current value for the debenture. Also maturity value plus the current value. Then you express it as a percentage. That's now how to calculate the yield to maturity. So what we need to do is to specify each one of them. So we start off by calculating interest. So interest, it will be 11% of the bar value. 11% of the bar value, and the bar value is given as 1,000. The bar value is given as 1,000. So interest rate is 11%. Interest is calculated on the bar value. So 11% of 1,000 will be the same as 110. 11% of 1,000 will be the same as 110. Then maturity value, unless otherwise stated, always remember maturity value unless otherwise stated is the same as the bar value, and that figure is meant to be 1,000. Maturity value, unless otherwise stated, it is the same as the bar value. Then current value for the debenture, it has been given. It is currently selling at 1,200. N was given. N was given, and that N, they gave you 18 years. N was given as 18 years. So the question had no corporate tax. The question had no corporate tax. So JD, or simply the yield to maturity, we take interest, which is 110. The question had no corporate tax. Maturity value, I've said the same as the bar value, which is 1,000. Current value for the debenture is 1,200. Then 1 over N. So N is 18 years. Then there will also be 1,000 plus 1,200. This one we multiply by a half, then express that figure as a percentage. So get that value, get that particular value. So express it as a percentage. It cannot be negative. It can't be negative. You confirm the figure. Anyone else who has calculated? Remember, you multiplied by 100. you express it as a percentage. Anyone else who has computed? Yeah. No one has also calculated. I've only seen either who gave me a figure. Yeah, it is around 8.9. So it should be around 8.99. Others, you are getting which figure? Others, you are getting which value? So that is now on that question. That is now on that question, how to calculate the cost of capital. So the next question I would like us to go through is the one for June 2013, question number 5, part D. I hope everyone else is okay. I hope everyone else is fine or okay, so that we go to the next question. Is everyone fine at that point? Are you all getting the same figure like what I've been given? So let us go to another question, June 2013, question number 5, part D. We go to June 2013, question number 5, part D. The next sitting, when you go to the next sitting, you'll see the question number 5, part D. Question number 5, part D. So that question 5D, the one for Everex Limited, has bonds which currently sells for shillings 1,150 with an 11% coupon interest rate. With an 11% coupon interest rate and shillings 1,000 bar value. The bonds pay interest annually and it have an 18 years to maturity. So we are doing the question for June 2013, question 5D. So they gave you that the company, this time down, there is the corporate tax. There is a corporate tax of 30%. So required, Roman letter 1, current yield of the bond. The current yield of the bond. Roman letter 2, the yield to maturity of the bond. Then finally, they wanted you to explain relationship between the calculated yield to maturity, current yield, and the coupon rate of the bond. So we start with the Roman letter 1, where you are supposed to calculate the current yield of the bond, where you are supposed to calculate the current yield of the bond. I want to see how to calculate the current yield of the bond. So to come up with the current yield of the bond, so current yield of the bond, to get the current yield of the bond, it is given by interest per annum. It is given by interest per annum. Then you divide by market value. We divide by the market value, then express it as a percentage. So you need to get interest per annum divided by the market value of the bond, then express it as a percentage. So interest per annum, when you want to get the interest per annum, you simply take what is there as 11% of the coupon rate. Sorry, 11% of the bar value. The bar value is 1,000. So this is also going to give you a value of 110. So market value was given. Market value was given. So take that 110. Market value for the bond is what you are given up there as 1150. It currently sells at 1150. Then show it as a percentage. You show that value as a percentage. So I've seen 9.56. Others, I hope you are getting the same. So that's now the Roman letter 1, how to compute the current yield of the bond. So next now, Roman letter 2 is the yield to maturity. Roman letter 2, you compute yield to maturity. So it is given by interest 1 minus the corporate tax. Then maturity value minus the current value, 1 over n. We also divide by maturity value plus the current value, multiplied by a half. Then express it as a percentage. Express it as a percentage. So interest, we already have it. The interest, you already have it. It is 110. 1 minus 0.3. Maturity value, I said, unless otherwise stated, is the same as the bar value. And that figure is 1,000. Current market value, we know 1150. L is also 18 years. So also divide by 1,000, you add like that, then multiply by a half. Express it as a percentage. So get that figure as our yield to maturity. So I've seen 6.38. I've seen 6.38. So that should be now the value. Let us now go to the Roman letter. We now go to the Roman letter 3, where they were asking to explain relationship between calculated yield to maturity, current yield, and also the coupon rate. We should now come up with the relationship between. So we need now to go to the relationship between, we check through those items. So what we should now come up with, we want to compare. So far, you have been given the coupon rate. You have been given the coupon rate. Coupon rate is 11%. The coupon rate is given as 11%. You calculated the current yield. Current yield, I was able to see a figure of 9.56, but if you rounded it off to be around 9.57, 9.57, but I've seen 6 like that. Then we have also just calculated our yield to maturity. Yield to maturity, I've seen a figure of 9.39, sorry, 6.39. So those are the figures that we have calculated. Then you are able to see the bar value. The bar value, it is 1,000. Then current value, or sale value or current value, it is given as 1150, like that. That's the information that we have. That's now the information that we have. So you see, when the coupon rate, so at the moment, the first dash, we say that if the coupon rate is greater than the current yield, which is also greater than the yield to maturity. So the first dash, we shall say that if coupon rate is greater than the current yield, which is greater than the yield to maturity, then the bond will sell at a premium. Then the bond will sell at a premium. And you can see it here. The bar value is 1,000, but the market value is 1150. So we are saying that if the coupon rate is greater than the current yield, which is greater than the yield to maturity, then the bond will sell at a premium. Then the bond will sell at a premium. Then another dash is that if the yield to maturity is greater than the current yield, which is also greater than the coupon rate. So I'm simply reversing. If the yield to maturity is greater than the current yield, which is greater than the coupon rate, then the bond will sell at a discount. Then the bond will sell at a discount. Then the bond will sell at a discount. Then another dash is that if coupon rate is equal to the current yield, which is equal to yield to maturity, then the bond will sell at par or face value. Then the bond will sell at par or the face value. The bond will sell at par or the face value. The bond will sell at par or the face value. The bond will sell at par or the face value. So that is now how you are to explain that relationship between the three items. So one more other question, I would also like you to check May 2014, question number 2, part B. May 2014, question number 2, part B. We can also go to May 2014, question number 2, part B. May 2014, question number 2, part B. May 2014, question number 2, part B. So that May 2014, there is a question number 2, part B. There is a question number 2, part B. May 2014, there is a question number 2, part B. So that question reads that Limited issued a new bond. It issued a new bond 5 years ago. The bond was sold at par. The bond was sold at par of 1,000 shillings and has a coupon rate of 12%. It has a coupon rate of 12% and maturity of 30 years. Maturity of 30 years. So coupon payments are made semi-annually. Coupon payments are made semi-annually. Interest rate has currently gone down to 10%. So required, Roman letter 1, they wanted you to calculate the current price of the bond. Roman letter 2, current yield to maturity of the bond. Roman letter 3, the capital gain. So first, we want to see how to get the current price of the bond. To get the value of the bond, from our previous discussions, I had shown you how to get the value of the bond. I had shown you how to calculate the value of the bond, how to compute the value of the bond. So if you want to get the value of the bond, when you want to calculate value of the bond, so value of the bond is supposed to be given by interest, present value of the interest, present value of the interest, then you add present value of the maturity value, present value of the maturity value, present value of the maturity value. So there is some information we need to analyze. They have said that interest is paid semi-annually. They have said that interest is paid semi-annually. So what we need to do on that, we need to come up with N. So N is the maturity period. The bond was supposed to be there for 30 years, but it was issued 5 years ago. So the remaining period is 25 years. The remaining period is 25 years. Multiply 25 by 2, because interest is paid semi-annually. That means in a year, they pay twice. That's why I'm taking that remaining period of 5 years, 25 years, I multiply by 2. So N is going to be 50. So R is the interest rate. Interest rate was given, they were able to give you a coupon rate of 12%. So you take 12% divided by 2. 12% is per annum. So divide by 2 to get per. So this should give you 6%. It should be able to give you 6%. Then cost of capital, the cost of capital. Cost of capital, it is 10%. So you take that 10%, then you also divide by 2. That cost of capital. Interest rate has currently gone down to 10. That's now what is meant to be our cost of capital. So get 10 divided by 2, it will be 5%. So coupon rate is what we use to calculate the interest rate. Coupon rate is what you normally apply to compute the interest rate. Then that interest given will be the same as the discounting rate. So now we can get our interest. So interest, simply take 6%. Interest, you simply take the 6%. You take the 6% off the bar value, which is 1,000. 6% of 1,000. So 6% of 1,000 should be how much? Should be able to be 60. Then maturity value, I said, unless otherwise stated, is the same as the bar value. It's the same as the bar value, which is 1,000. So we start by calculating the present value of the interest. We start off by computing present value for the interest. So it will be given by the annuity multiplied by the present value interest factor for the annuity. Our cost of capital is now 5%. So N will be 50 periods. N will be 50 periods. So our annuity is the interest, which we got 60. So I would like you to confirm from the annuity table. Check in your annuity table what is 5% in period 50. Check in your annuity table what is 5% in period 50. What is 5% in period 50? So what should be 5% in period 50? So that figure from the table, I've been given a value of, is it 15 or 18? Yeah, it should be 18. So it is 18.256. 18.256. So you get the value for that. Also get present value of the maturity value. So this one, you also take the maturity value, which is 1,000 multiplied by present value interest factor 5% in period 10. So this one you use the single period table, whereby you take the 1,000. You take the 1,000. Then you confirm from the table what is 5% in period 50. What should be 5% in period 50? You use the other table. When we are using the single period table, what figure do we have there? It is 0. What? 0.0872. So 0.0872. So add them together. That should now be able to give you the value for the bond. So add them together to get now the current price of the bond, or simply the value for the bond. So 1182.56. 1182.56. So now we go to the Roman letter 2, the current yield to maturity. We go to the Roman letter 2, which is supposed to be the current yield to maturity. 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 So we now check the current yield to maturity. Remember, it is current yield. I gave you the formula for the current yield in the previous question. It is current yield. So current yield should be given by, it is interest per annum divided by market value. Express it as a percentage. Remember, it is current yield to maturity. So the term there is current yield. The issue is the current yield. That is what we wanted you to calculate. So I had already given you a formula of how to get the current yield. So it is simply interest per annum divided by what is supposed to be the market value. So interest per annum, we forget about what the question said that they paid semi-annually. We simply take 12% of 1,000. So interest per annum, we simply take 12% of 1,000. So that will be the same as 120. That will be the same as 120. Then market value is what we have just calculated. So now the current yield will be 120 divided by market value in the Roman letter 1, it is 1182. 1182.56. Express that figure as a percentage. Express that figure as a percentage. So 10.15. Now you go to the Roman letter 3, the capital gain on the bond. So when you want to get the capital gain, you simply get the current yield minus the cost of capital. So current yield, it is 10.15 that you have calculated. The cost of capital is 10%. Remember, we had taken 10 divided by 2, but this one will simply be . So one more question on that element. I would like you now to go to November 2016, question number 5. November 2016, there is a question number 5. So we check the question for November 2016. There is a question number 5. November 2016. Question number 5. So November 2016, question 5. Let us check about November 2016, question number 5. November 2016, there is a question number 5. So that question 5 we start with part A, where the question asks you to explain the following terms as used in the bond market. The following terms as used in the bond market. So the question wanted you to explain the following terms as used in the bond market. So number A will be yield to maturity. A should be yield to maturity. So for the yield to maturity, we write that it is a measure of the bond rate of return. It is a measure of the bond rate of return that considers both the interest income. It is a measure of the bond rate of return that considers both the interest income, and any capital gain or loss, i.e. it is the bond internal rate of return. It is the bond internal rate of return. So that is now the yield to maturity. Roman letter 2 will be the yield to call. Roman letter 2 will be yield to call. The yield to call. Yield to call. So that was now the Roman letter 1, which was the yield to maturity. So for the yield to call, we write that it is a measure of the bond rate of return. It is a measure of the bond rate of return where the bond is redeemed or called, before maturity. And it considers the interest income, plus any capital gain or loss, up to the time of the call. It considers interest income plus any capital gain or loss up to the time of the call. So that is now about what we mean by the yields to call. So now we go to part B. Part B reads that Ganyoni Limited has issued a shillings 10,000 par value 10-year bond. Ganyoni Limited has issued a shillings 10,000 par value 10-year bond with a coupon rate of 12%. Per annum. The bond is currently trading at 8,830 and is callable at 10,500 after 5 years. So the company will pay interest on its bond semi-annually. So required, Roman letter 1, yields to maturity of the bond. Roman letter 2, they have said that the yields to call of the bond. So we start to the Roman letter 1, which is supposed to be the yield to maturity. We start off with the Roman letter 1, which is yield to maturity. So yield to maturity, it is given by interest 1 minus the corporate tax. Then we add maturity value minus the current value 1 over n. We also divide by maturity value. We add the current value. Then we express it as a percentage. Then we express it as a percentage. So first, we see how to compute. So n, and they say that interest is paid semi-annually. It is paid semi-annually. So n will be, you take the 10 years. 10 years multiplied by 2. Multiplied by 2. That should be 20. Because interest is paid semi-annually. Then the other thing is the interest rate. So interest rate, the question had given it the coupon rate of 12%. So you take 12 divided by 2. That will be 6%. So interest will be 6% of the bar value. 6% of the bar value. And the bar value is 10,000. So this one should be able to give you 600. It should be able to give you 600. So maturity value. Maturity value, you simply take their bar value, which is 10,000. Then current value for that debenture, they are able to give you 8830. 8830 like that. So now you can calculate what should be the yield to maturity. What should be the yield to maturity? So interest will simply be 600, then 1 minus the corporate tax rate was given as 30%. The corporate tax rate. So I can't see the corporate tax, I assume it is 0. So if it is not given, we normally assume it is 0. Now, on my side, I'm not able to see the corporate tax rate, so I assume it is 0. So maturity value is 10,000. Current value is 8830. So n is 20. You also divide by 10,000 plus 8830. So this one multiplied by half. So I've seen a value of around 6.99. I've seen a figure of around 6.99. But we get it per annum. So to calculate that figure per annum, remember to take 6.99 multiplied by 2. Because what we have calculated is semi-annually. So after you have calculated that figure, multiplied by 2 to get per annum. Multiplied by 2 to get per annum. So when you multiply by 2 per annum, it should be able to give you which figure? So that is now what was the yield to maturity. Let us also go to the yield to call. Let us now go to the yield to call. So yield to call, it will be the same formula. The yield to call. Yield to call is the same formula, the way it is. Interest was still paid semi-annually. So N will change. N will change because it was callable after 5 years. You take 5 multiplied by 2. It was callable after 5 years. You take 5 multiplied by 2, which will be able to give you 10. The rest of the details will remain except the maturity value. Maturity value is the callable value. Maturity value will now be the callable value. That maturity value will now be the callable value. It is callable at 10,500. At 10,500. The rest of the details will remain. You only change this maturity value is now the callable value, and you change it to 10, like that. The rest of the details are not changed except the callable value, which is now our maturity value. The callable value is now the maturity value. Then N is now 10 because it is 5 years. It was callable after 5 years, so confirm what value should we now have at that level. So confirm the figure for that. So what figure should we get when it comes to the yield to call? So the formula is still the same as the one for the yield to maturity. The formula is still the same like the one for the yield to maturity. Confirm. 3.967 is too small. It should be more than 7. That figure is more than 7 point something. That value should be 7 point something. Those who have computed, you confirm. Yeah, so it is around 7.935. So multiplied by 2. Multiplied by 2 so that you now get per annum. You multiply by 2 so that you get per annum. So the next part will be now the weighted average cost of capital. The next part of the same topic will now be the weighted average cost of capital. The weighted average cost of capital. That's now the next item that we should be able to discuss. So the WSC, we also refer to it as WSC. So I'm not able to cover it now. So I was asking if I can meet you tomorrow from 8:30 to 10:30. We meet tomorrow from 10:30, from 8:30, sorry, 8:30 to 10:30, so that we see whether we can finish this part of the topic, so that next week I start the last topic. So is it okay? So tomorrow we meet from 8:30 to 10:30 to see whether we can finish this particular portion, so that now next week I would simply deal with the issue of the replacement and some capital budgeting, NPV and IRR, which may not be that much. So let us stop there for today. So tomorrow we meet from that 8:30 to 10:30 to see how much we shall cover. The remaining part, we finish it off by next week. So I will also send you the notes. For the ratios analysis, so that you go through them. I will also send you the same part, some solutions on that element of the ratios. So if not today, I'll do it on Monday. Make sure you check in the class group, you get those notes on the ratio analysis. So we stop there for today. Yeah, I will be able to send the recording by midday